It is, and it always has been about the economy. Stupid. The economy, its current dismal state, and the hope of returning it back to affordable greatness was the top issue for voters. And spoiler alert, the voters think Trump is better equipped to tackle the challenge.
I'm looking to make our country great. I'm looking to bring prices down because, I won on two things, the border and more than immigration. They like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I won on the border and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
Donald Trump isn't even back in office yet, but he's already working on the great American economic comeback. And part of that economic approach includes unleashing American energy production, drill, frack, export. That's an easy way to get the ball rolling. And while the Democrats clutch their pearls at the thought of making other countries pay their fair share or, God forbid, do their part to secure their own borders, Donald Trump has a new favorite word, and it starts with a T.
You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow. But I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries, but in particular China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we had no inflation. In fact, when I handed it over, they didn't have inflation for a year and a half. They went almost 2 years just based on what I had created. And then they created inflation with energy and with spending too much. So I think we will. I'm a big believer in tariffs. I think tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be subsidizing. Why are we subsidizing these countries? If we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state. We're subsidizing Mexico, and we're subsidizing Canada, and we're subsidizing many countries all over the world. And all I want to do is I want to have a level, fast, but fair playing field.
Tariff, such a beautiful word. But what do these plans mean for you, for me, for our pocketbooks and our kitchen tables? Join me now with his expert analysis is Trump campaign senior economic advisor, Steve Moore. Steve, it's great to have you. The American people, they're excited for January 20th. They want to make America great again. They want to make America affordable again. They want their groceries to be affordable again, as Donald Trump said in that Meet the Press interview. So when he's talking about things like tariffs, the left panics. They freak out. They say that's just a tax on the consumer. Do you think that his tariff plan and approach will be effective? And if so, why so?
Well, Tommy, great to be with you. Thanks so much for the opportunity to come on your great show. Listen, I've worked with Donald Trump now for 8 or 9 years. He and I agree with almost everything that he wants to do. He and I have arguments about things. I'm not a huge fan of tariffs, but I'll tell you, he's really changed my opinion a bit on tariffs, Tommy, because I've seen it work. I've seen him in action where he has used the threat of tariffs as a negotiating tool to get other countries to do things that are America's national defense interests. And so I think that's exactly what you'll see in the second term. He's going to get very tough with these other countries that are cheating the United States. They're stealing our technologies. And if they're imposing huge tariffs on us, there will be what Trump calls reciprocity. In other words, if you're going to hit us in the nose, we're going to hit you right back.
Yeah, I think you're right about the threat of tariffs being a bargaining chip for Donald Trump. It was in the first administration. People forget that he threatened tariffs on Mexico over their border and the drug trafficking. And then all of a sudden, the Mexican military had to play ball. I saw it myself firsthand that the Mexican military was actually working to interdict some of the illegals that were coming across our border because they had to help us, help our country, help their country. And so they actually had to do their part. And so that's part of this whole thing. But I thought it was really interesting when Trump announced these tariffs or the tariff plans. And then you saw Canadian Prime Minister, or as Donald Trump has been calling him, Governor Justin Trudeau, go right down to Mar-a-Lago. And he seemed very concerned about this. And we know that they had a conversation, and Donald Trump said really pretty explicitly, like, hey, you know, if your economy is going to collapse if I impose these sanctions, then maybe you should just become the 51st state. Obviously, that's a joke in jest. We're not going to annex Canada anytime soon. But what do you make of Canada? Do you think that, you know, there's some work to be done? And do you think that their economy is ready to maybe help our economy and we could see a real beautiful thing happen during administration 2?
Well, listen, I've always been in favor of the idea of a trade zone where North America, that would be Canada, the United States, and Mexico, would be joined together, and we could be the dominant continent in the world. And by the way, we're well on our way to being that. And that was Ronald Reagan's vision. And yet what has happened is some of these, Canada and Mexico continue to put tariffs on us and continue to do things that we cannot live with. Literally not the things we can't live with. I applaud, and I'm not a tariff guy, but I applaud what Trump is saying to Canada and also to China and Mexico. If you keep allowing this fentanyl, this killer drug, into our country, and by the way, you know, Tommy, it is one of the leading deaths of young people in America today. So it is a lethal weapon that they're bringing into our country. And we cannot allow that. And so Trump said, look, if you're going to continue to enable these lethal drugs into our country, this poison, we're going to slap you with the tariff. And I guarantee you that both Canada and Mexico, and I think in the end of the day, China will abide by what Trump is saying. I want to make one point clear, if I may, about tariffs. So many of these economists, like Larry Summers, who was the chief economist for Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, saying, oh, well, Trump's tariffs will be inflationary. And that's not exactly true, because if you just impose tariffs on a country and did nothing else, then those things will be more expensive, and that might contribute to inflation a little bit. But what these economists are missing is that what he's talking about is offsetting the tariffs with income tax rate reductions that are on things that are made in America. So in other words, you might pay a little bit more for toys that come in from China, but the manufacturing products that are made in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Maine and California, those things will have a lower tax. So I don't understand how these economists are saying that Trump's agenda will cause inflation. It will not.
Yeah, I think that that's an important point that you make as well. And, you know, when it comes to food, I mean, we have the ability through our farmers and our ranchers to grow and to raise the food, not only for our country, but to export to other countries. I believe that the potential hasn't even been tapped. I mean, energy is one conversation, but also our food production is another. Yeah. There's a lot of American ranchers and farmers who can produce more, that want to produce more. And I think we should be doing that and unleash American potential. So that leads me to American energy production. Donald Trump has said over and over again, and the left just doesn't seem to understand it, that when you unleash American energy production, the price of everything is going to go down, because energy contributes to the price of everything, whether it's the transportation or, you know, whether it's getting the goods where they need to go, the shipping, all of it. But will that be enough if we unleash American energy production to allow us to see prices in our grocery stores and elsewhere to go down rather quickly, or is it going to take a couple years?
Well, you know, there's a reason that they call people like myself and people like Art Laffer and Larry Kudlow supply side economists, because what we believe, and I would say Donald Trump is a supply side economist. If you increase the supply of goods and services, Tommy, what happens to the price? It goes down. And so the best way to bring inflation down is to produce more things. You produce more apples, the price of apples goes down. And so Trump is pro-production, he's pro-America. I feel very strongly, look, under Trump, the average inflation rate for the 4 years he was in office was 1.9%, which is below the Fed target for inflation. So we did not have a problem. I would say this as well, that I think that when you've got countries that are imposing huge tariffs on the United States, there's a problem with that. And Donald Trump is, in my lifetime, and I'm 64 years old, he is the single best negotiator I've ever met. I mean, he understands, what's the book? The Art of the Deal. He understands how to deal with these countries. I mean, I laughed out loud. You remember during the debate, Kamala Harris said, well, all these foreign leaders are for me, not you. Well, of course they were for Kamala, because she would have been a doormat. They don't want to have to negotiate with Donald Trump, because he's negotiating on behalf of you and me and all the people listening to this and watching this show. So I feel very confident, that Donald Trump is going to negotiate the best deals that he can that are putting America first. And that's what a president should do.
Right. Will it take a while, though? Or like, how immediate? Because we know that the American people are very excited for Donald Trump, and many voted on him for reasons of the economy, and they're very excited to see what Donald Trump can do. But I worry that there's not going to be a lot of patience. I think people are going to expect him to be inaugurated, and they're going to expect, eggs to drop $2, and they're going to expect gas prices to plummet. They're going to have a lot of expectations for what Donald Trump can do. And so I want to be realistic with how long this could really take. I mean, obviously, Joe Biden has left a mess, and it's going to be some cleanup work for Donald Trump and those around him. But how quickly are we going to see the progress?
Well, it's a great question. And it's a hard one to answer because on the one hand, look, Trump was elected roughly a little over a month ago. And yet, look what's happened already. I mean, you see it all over the country. There is so much confidence. There's so much optimism. Just the other day, the National Federation of Independent Business came out with their survey of 2,000 small business owners around the country. The confidence went through the roof, the optimism. So businessmen and women, and whether they're big businesses or small businesses, know that good things are coming. Look at what's happened with consumer confidence. Look at, Tommy, what happened with the Black Friday sales during Thanksgiving, off the charts. So there's a new bounce in the step of America right now, and I think that's going to be a very positive thing. But you're also right. On the other hand, Biden is leaving a mess for Trump. And I'm so sick and tired of Joe Biden giving this, whereas everything's so wonderful. Well, if everything was so wonderful, the Democrats wouldn't have been wiped out all over the country. People are not feeling wonderful. They're feeling financial stress. The average American is poorer today than when Joe Biden came into office 4 years ago. So how dare he say, yeah, they're great if you live in Washington, D.C., or if you're in the top 1%. But for the vast majority of Americans, they're not in a good financial shape right now. But I think it'll take about 6 months to a year to really get the economy booming.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a reasonable amount of time. I think that the American people will be patient and understand that it is going to take a little bit of time. A lot of what really frustrated voters in the lead up to the election during campaign season was Democrats, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris saying, things are actually not as expensive as you think that they are. And the prices actually haven't gone up as much in the last year as you thought that they would. And they were really touting that as some kind of a victory. But in essence, what they were telling the American people is, eggs are way too expensive, but they haven't gone up since they were way too expensive 6 months ago. Right. But they just stayed that expensive. And then they just really expected consumers to just understand that that's just going to be the new price. Are we going to see prices actually drop back to where they were? COVID was a weird time. We know gas prices were low because people weren't going anywhere. And we know that, certain things were less expensive just because the economy was stalling, and we had an unprecedented pandemic that we should have never shut down our economy for. But do you think that we're going to actually see prices drop now that Donald Trump is in office? Or do you think that the things like eggs and milk and stuff are going to stay relatively the same, even with all the good works of Donald Trump?
Well, we don't actually, we are where we are, and people have really suffered, no question, from the inflation. And by the way, the inflation is a lot higher than the 21% that they say it's been. I think, when you ask the average person and the things they have to buy, the milk, the eggs, the groceries, the gas prices, look at mortgages and rents and utility bills, those are up 30 to 35%. And that's stealing people's money because you have to pay more and more and more for things. I mean, my wife the other day, I got home and she was just so frustrated. She literally grabbed me by the arm. She said, look, I'm taking you to the grocery store. You're going to have to see firsthand what these things cost. And I couldn't believe it, like $9 for a box of Wheaties. I mean, what is going on in this country? So we may see those prices come down a little bit, but the most important thing is to level out prices. One of the keys to prosperity is to have stable prices. The dollar needs to be as good as gold. And that, by the way, I'd love to see Trump issue gold-backed securities, so that when people buy a treasury bill or, because we're borrowing so much money, that would be backed by gold so that, you're protected from inflation, because inflation is a killer for American families. But we're going to get the employment rate up. By the way, the one area where you may see reductions in prices is the one that you just mentioned, Tommy, and that is gas prices. I think if we produce 3 million more barrels a day, which we can, I think we can bring the world price of gas down to $2.50 a gallon, which would be great, because it went up to $5 a gallon under Biden.
Yeah. It was wild. What do you think about crypto? Because you mentioned the gold backed, but Donald Trump has had a lot of support for crypto, and we saw crypto markets because of in part because of what Donald Trump said, really take off. Do you think that crypto is something that Donald Trump's going to continue to advocate for? And do you agree with that? There's a lot of traditional economists that don't like crypto, they don't like the Bitcoin, they don't encourage people to get into that industry. But do you think that that's something that's going to gain steam in Trump administration too?
So I have to confess that I have not invested in Bitcoin. I sure wish I had because it's been on a tear. But I did invest in NVIDIA and I made a lot of money on that stock. But look, I think it's a healthy thing that we have private alternative currencies to these government fiat currencies because it keeps them honest. And I want, if we want the Federal Reserve Board and the Bank of England and all these arrogant central bankers around the world to have to be accountable, and they have to be, if the reason that people are buying Bitcoin and buying gold, and by the way, the gold price is up quite a bit, because they don't trust the central bankers and the politicians around the world. I'm going to tell you something I think is, I just wrote my column on this, Tommy, and I'm just eager to talk about this. I'm going to say this to you. I really believe Trumpism is going to go all over the world. I think you're going to see governments all over the world toppling. I think the British government is going to fail, and they're out of there. I think it's going to happen in France. I think it's going to happen in Germany. I think it's going to happen in Korea. People are sick and tired of arrogant, out of touch, selfish politicians bullying us and telling us what to do and running our economies into the ground. And I got to tell you, people around the world are fascinated by Trump. And people around the world are saying, hey, we need somebody like Donald Trump in our country. So if I sound excited, I am. I think this could be a pro-liberty, pro-people, pro-freedom movement that Trump has launched, not just in the United States, but in every corner of the globe.
And especially to those European countries that decided that open borders and over-immigration was going to be the law of the land, that people are revolting against that notion, and people want to secure their borders, and they want to protect their culture, and they want to protect their countries. I mean, heaven forbid you go to Paris and it feels like Paris. Heaven forbid you go to London and it feels like London. I mean, when you have the number one name in England being Mohammed, I'm sorry, it's okay for people to say, we kind of like our culture back. That would be fun. I want to ask you something that might seem really stupid and really elementary, but you just have to explain it to me and to the other folks out there that are so confused by this and infuriated by it, by the way. We see FEMA and we see these agencies and we see these people in North Carolina that they're not getting the assistance that they need. They pay into a system and they expect it to be there when there's a national emergency or there's a natural disaster, and they're not seeing that. They're not getting the help that they feel like they need. And in many cases, they've been forgotten. They watch that happen. And even if they're not in North Carolina, and they're infuriated by it. And then you see Joe Biden go over to Angola and say, we're going to give you $1 billion. And they see, oh, well, the Syrians, we're going to give you $1 billion. And it's like, we're just handing out money all over the globe. And it feels like to the average person out there, like, wait a minute, I thought we didn't have any money. Like, where is this money coming from to give to all these foreign nations? And if we have so much to give, why are so many Americans feeling the shaft? You have to explain it to me. Is there just different pots of money? Is the money imaginary? Is it falling from the sky? Because people like me who are not economists, we don't get it, how we have so much money to hand out when we don't have any for the American people.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I wish I could explain that, but I don't think I can because it's cockamamie. And you're right that, we are sending all this money. I mean, Ukraine, how much money have we given Ukraine? How much that, look, I mean, we're all in favor of we all want Ukraine to the freedom fighters there to win, but we've probably spent over $100 billion. We don't even know how much of that money even got to Ukraine. I would bet that half of it got intercepted by, these middlemen. And so I believe that Trump is going to bring a new approach, no more foreign aid. We are going to, the best thing we can do for the world, and Reagan taught us this. I mean, by the way, I should say, I feel so privileged in my life. I have been able to serve for the two greatest presidents in modern times, Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. And both of them had this idea of, if we get it right here at home, then the rest of the world, everyone looks to America. Mm-hmm. The problem with Biden is he screwed everything up, and then all these other countries went over the cliff with him. And so the best thing we can do is lead by example. Show the rest of the world how you create prosperity. You keep your taxes low and flat. You have free and open trade. You have a sound currency. You don't let your government get out of control. All of these things are critical to having a healthy economy. And if we do that here at home, I guarantee you the rest of the world will follow our example. But this idea of sending all this foreign aid money, the problem is it doesn't even get to the people it's supposed to help, for goodness sakes.
Well, and then we import people from these countries too, and then we take care of them here. Like we send all the money to other countries, and then we tell the world to invade our border, and we pay for them here, and we pay for them there. We're paying for everyone everywhere all the time, and people are pissed off. They're sick of it. But, there are some Democrats that are still in control of state governments, obviously. You've got Governor Hochul, who really wants to get reelected. She's concerned about it because her state's a mess. And her answer to inflation, the fact that people in her state can't afford things, is she wants to hand out checks. So I want to play this clip, and you tell me how rational this sounds to you.
Here's what I'm proposing in my budget next month. They will send you a check to buy your groceries for a month or whatever you want to spend it on. And if you're an individual earning up to $150,000 a year, it's $300. If you're filing jointly and you have a family, you need a little more, right? Families are expensive. How about this? $500. $500 for families earning less than $300,000, because I know life in New York City is expensive and your salaries may sound nice, but they don't go very far.
So she's admitting that she's a dismal failure, and so is her state, and so is Joe Biden. But her solution is, we'll give you $300, we'll give you $500. Hey, just cash in. We'll give you free money because it just grows on trees. It comes from nowhere. Isn't that exactly how we got into this inflationary mess in the first place, is handing out stimulus checks and COVID checks and all this? I mean, first of all, $300 to $500 isn't going to do a whole lot for people. But what is she thinking? And do you think other governors that want to win re-election are going to do the same thing?
Well, it's amazing how generous Democrat and progressive governors and mayors are with other people's money. If she wants to give $500 to a person, I'm all in favor of that. I'm in favor of giving, charitable donations. But what New York is the epitome of a failed state in America. They have raised their tax rates up to the highest in the country. So it's a 14% income tax there. By the way, you can move to Florida or Texas or Tennessee and pay zero. So guess what? All the rich people are leaving New York. So they're losing their most productive people. We see this in the census data. California and New York are just being bled to death. And then now they're saying, no, stay here. We'll give you $300. And people are saying, no, people want to go to a land of opportunity. And by the way, and she's probably going to say, oh, we're going to just soak the rich to pay for this. There's not going to be any rich for them to pay the tax. They won't be in New York anymore. They're going to be in Nashville. They're going to be in Fort Lauderdale. They're going to be in Austin, Texas. So this is a strategy that is to take New York right over the cliff. And I pray when I listen to that the people in New York are not stupid enough to believe that the governor of New York can play Santa Claus, because she can't.
Yeah, and the way that she unveiled it was so hokey and so embarrassing. And I remember during COVID, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, people were struggling during COVID because they shut businesses down and they started handing out loans and checks to people's mailboxes. And then, what I started noticing is that the malls started getting really busy. The lines at the designer stores started getting really long. And there was a lot of yachts being chartered in Miami with, groups of people who probably had never chartered a yacht before, but they suddenly had all this extra money. So they took 20 of their best friends to go twerk on a boat in Miami for the rest of us to have to look at the government spending on their good times. So it was really frustrating for a lot of people to watch this happen. And I just hope that we never make that mistake again. But with Donald Trump in office, at least we'll have 4 years of sanity. And let's just hope we can hand it off to somebody that's just as excellent in 2028. Steve Moore, thank you so much for your valuable insight. And we're so glad to have you part of the economic strategy for one of the greatest presidents of my lifetime. Thanks so much for your time. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and happy almost Inauguration Day.
Hey, thank you, Tommy. And it's been a real privilege. And I have to say, it is the honor of my life to have been able to serve with Donald Trump, because he is one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. And we are going to turn things around so quickly. It's going to be, remember what Trump used to say? We're going to get tired of winning.
We'll never get tired of winning because we've been losing for 4 years. I'm so excited about it. Thanks so much. Your
Thank you.
optimism, your joy is infectious, and we appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time. All right, folks, that does it for this very special economic episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Please be sure to tune in Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern as usual. Catch full episodes of this show on Fox Nation whenever you want. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can see all the episodes there. And folks, don't forget, Christmas is right around the corner. Shop all of our Outkick merchandise by visiting shop.outkick.com and score 20% off with code HOLIDAY at checkout. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.